This is my presentation. It's the video article summary, misinformation, and morality. In this article, they do about 4 experiments on how people get familiar with things, and the more familiar you get with things, the more likely you are to think that it might be true, or even to share that information, even if you know it's not true. And so a big part of this is knowing that the articles or headlines are not true, and if they're not true, why people might share them or the likelihood of people sharing them. So let's look at the first experiment, and in this one I'm just going to go through all of this one, and the other 4 are fairly similar, so I might just summarize for those. There's 150 participants that are all told these headlines are fake. The ones that we're about to show you, they're all fake, and they really emphasize that so that people understand that from the beginning. And then they're going to go through this familiarization process, and they're going to do this familiarization process for all 4 experiments with all the different types of participants. And in each one, they're going to look at 12 headlines. In the familiarization process, they only look at 6 of them. This is the first half. And in the first experiment, they're going to look at those 4 times. They see all of them 4 times. They engage with all of them 4 times. They answer questions. Is this enjoyable? What do you like this one? How would you describe it? Just basic questions to try to engage them in looking at the headlines. And then they're going to transition to a judgment phase where they talk about, what's the accuracy of it? Do they know like this or that about it? And it seems like participants might have forgotten which ones were accurate or not accurate, but they marked the ones that they had seen before as accurate. And so it shows that people are more likely to like or share or even to post just something they've seen before. They've seen it, so they're going to post it or interact with it in some way. And it also shows the opposite is true. They're not going to block them or have negative intentions or negative comments because they've seen it before. And it's so it shows that familiarity creates a level of trust or a level of false accuracy in some situation. So experiment 2, they change just slightly. They can only see the articles in the familiarization phase 1 time. They only see them once, and then they do that same judgment phase. In this one, 5.68% of participants misidentified false headlines as true. So that means that they saw these, they're all false. And so they tell you that at the beginning of the experiment. These 6 headlines we're going to show you, all false. And so 5% of people still said that they're true. And so that means that they could have just forgotten from the beginning. They only saw them once. But it shows that they, most people, 95%, retained the ones that they saw that were false. And so the ones initially introduced were almost all seen. And so it appears that seeing that article once is enough to lower the rate at which people would morally condemn a headline. So they lowered it only by about 2%. So if they've not seen it before, there's a 77% chance that they think it's less ethical to publish. But if they've seen it before, they know it's false, then that's going to go to a 75% chance. And so then we're going to move on to experiment 3. In experiment 3, it's almost exactly the same as experiment 1. So we go back to letting them look at them 4 times to really get familiar with these false articles. And then they're going to divide people up randomly into 2 groups, deliberative and intuitive. The deliberative people, they're heavily encouraged, take your time, think about it, whenever they're making these judgments. Like, how accurate do you think it is? If they give a really quick answer, they're like, well, think about it, take your time. Whereas with intuitive, as soon as they give an answer, they move on to the next one. If they're hesitating, like, no stress, just go ahead and give an answer just as fast as you can. And so they wanted to compare that, what kind of difference that makes. So if you look, there's a chart with the intuitive side, their rates are a lot lower. But with the declarative side, their rates are higher. And this just shows that people who are intuitive are less likely to engage in moral condemnation, whereas people that have thought about it, they're deliberative, they've thought about it, and so they're more likely to engage with that because, as stated, they know that these articles are false. And so, as previously seen, the moral condemnation rate is still lower for previously seen headlines, but there's a significant difference between the intuitive and